Okay, so welcome everyone. Um, it's Tuesday, and thinking today we would focus on a resilience practice. Um, the idea behind resilience is that there are different types of um, I guess resilience that we can cultivate, or that would be useful to cultivate. One is psychological, so things that happen in our mind. How able are we to be with things that feel uncomfortable or create a sense of dis-ease? Same with emotions and physical sensations, right? We don't really control our emotions or the sensations that we experience, and so our ability to be with that in a way that doesn't completely derail us can be really useful. And then there's the social relational piece. We don't control what people do or say, and oftentimes it can just get under our skin, and when people do certain things, or don't for that matter, it can be really challenging for us. And the good news is resilience is absolutely a skill that fits into this category of you are what you repeatedly do. So if we repeatedly practice resilience, we get better and better at it, and then it becomes more second nature to us, and we simply become a resilient person at some point. Um, okay, so there's three skills that I want us to focus on here. The first one is bounce. So this means that if you imagine dropping a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball or a basketball off a high object, it will bounce really high. It'll basically try to get back up to the level that it was initially dropped from. So that's really good bounce. So imagine your emotions or your psychological mindset being able to bounce back up to this baseline, or back up to equilibrium when something goes differently than we thought it was going to be. So bounce is one aspect of resilience that I'd like to focus on. The other one is grit. The word that I really like here is composure. So I think of grit, as if you look at this guy's hands, they're thick, they're calloused. He's not going to get paper cuts. He's not going to get, he's not going to start bleeding when he pulls a staple out of a stack of papers, because he's got grit on his hands, right? So that being a metaphor for how can we cultivate a sense of grittiness when it comes to our emotions and our physical sensations, or are we just really, really thin-skinned? So I'm literally using that analogy there. And then, can we maintain a sense of composure or poise as we go through it, or are we white knuckling it and kind of grinning and bearing it to get through it? And obviously, it'd be nice to be able to have some poise and composure as we go through difficult situations. Um, and then the third skill that's part of resilience is the reframe. So that means, whether it's the context or the story that we tell ourselves about a situation, and can we, reframe it or create a new context around it, find a new context around it that allows us to just experience it differently. So one of my favorite teachers, Robert Sapolsky, is a neurologist down at Stanford, and he talks about how we as a species we'll pay good money to go sit on a absolutely subject ourselves to a terrifying experience on a roller coaster, for example. Like, we actually go to places, we pay people money so that we can really feel terrified. Now, the reason that's fun for a short is because we know the context is this is for a short period of time. I believe it's relatively safe, meaning people typically don't get hurt on this. And I know it's not going to go on forever. Now, if you were to put people on a roller coaster that lasted for an hour, probably wouldn't be so fun anymore, right? Or the same physiological, adrenaline and excitement that gets kicked in if you're suddenly in the middle of an actual real life uh, scenario that feels dangerous, not so fun anymore. And so the difference there is just context. Physiologically, we're having the same underlying reaction. So the reframe is really key. So let's go ahead and invite you to think of a situation recently that didn't go so well for you. Or another way of putting it, it went differently than you had hoped. And maybe, you told yourself that this is something that you did wrong or this is being done to you. Well, let's just close our eyes and drop into this memory of a time where things felt challenging. So dropping into this memory, and to whatever extent you can, see if you can amplify all of the sensations involved in this memory. So if there are other people involved, see if you can hear their voices or sense their presence. What was it like to be around people? If you're on your own, just notice where you are and what it's like in this situation where you're realizing that what you wanted to have happen just is not going to happen. Things are very different. Maybe you feel some fear, frustration, irritation, anger, even. And see if you can really place yourself back in this situation. Again, we're using memory to simulate what it was like to have things go wrong. Now, I want you to notice the thoughts that are going through your mind about this situation. Who did what? Why is this happening? And see if you can spot, words like always or never. Those are usually pretty good indicators of, feeling stressed about something. This always happens to me. I always do this. They always. And now notice the psychological, emotional, and physiological toll this experience is having on you. Notice what it feels like to be in this situation. What it's like to feel the irritation or the fear or the frustration. Where do you feel it? Allow yourself to lean into that a little bit. And especially notice, the story that you're telling yourself. So let's start with this narrative and the reframe. Notice the explanation that you have for why this is happening. Either this person is a jerk, or this is so typical. They always do this kind of stuff. See if you can find a different context or a different vantage point on what's actually happening there. Maybe there's a good reason that they're doing this. Maybe there's a good reason you did what you did. They said what they said. That has nothing to do with the story or the narrative that you've developed in your head. And so the reframe is really about just opening up to the possibility that there may be other factors at play. It's getting a little bit creative, maybe giving the benefit of the doubt. And you may never actually know why this happened or why the person did what they did. That's okay. It's not about them. It's really simply about us building resilience by looking for a potential different explanation for the events that happened and just being open to this different explanation, just reframing it. And now I want you to imagine yourself being flexible and bouncy. Yeah, this, whatever the situation is, was unanticipated, it was unexpected, it feels negative. Then imagine yourself shaking it off and being a basketball instead of a bowling ball, being a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball instead of a cannonball. Just be bouncy. Just imagine yourself coming right back up to baseline where you were before this happened. What would it take to do that? What do you need to let go of, or what do you need to accept in order to get right back up to where you were? And then let's layer in some grit. So imagine, visualize the mason's hands or the fisherman's hands. There's no paper cuts. There's no little puncture wounds from staples. We're a little bit tougher than that. And imagine just being able to look at this situation or this person or even yourself through the eyes with a little more grit, a little more, maybe you shrug your shoulders and you say, yeah, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. I don't need to let this unravel me. I'm grittier than that. And so what we're using here is our imagination and our creativity to go back in our brain to activate memories from the past. And we get a do-over. We can imagine redoing this situation, equipped with a few more tools, equipped with a little more bounce, a little more grit, a more creativity around being able to reframe what happened. And notice how different your life would have been had that been possible for you at the time. And again, this very much falls into this category of, we are what we repeatedly do. So unfortunately, when we get activated or triggered and things don't go our way, by definition, if we're being reactive, we're kind of out of control. It's a little bit too late. Our emotions, our psychology is just probably going to get the better of us. But I think there's real value in creating a little bit of a structured practice to go back and do, for lack of a better term, a post-mortem on some of those situations and say, okay, what if I could do that over again with a little more grit, a little more bounce, a little more creativity around my explanatory style as to what's going on there, and then actually really feel it, really, really process that situation as if you were reliving it. Yeah, and see how that might feel different. Um, anyway, so that concludes a short practice on resilience. I hope that was helpful. May it serve you well throughout the rest of the day. We'll be back online tomorrow at noon, same time, same place. And as usual, I'll stick around for a few more minutes if anyone wants to connect. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Good to see you.